Yes, everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name's Stephen Howson, and today, 5 things that we learned watching United against Newcastle yesterday. Don't know why I'm smiling, because I'm still fuming with it, to be honest with you. Anyway, first one, Eriksen over Fred. Eriksen was sorely missed yesterday at Old Trafford, and it became very, very evident what we've been missing in the team prior to having him, and obviously yesterday not having him as well. Fred was awful. Um, the disparity in talent between the two of them is almost unfathomable. Fred was awful. He just isn't the quality of in possession player that we need at all. Newcastle was able to squeeze and press because Casemiro and Fred just haven't got the ability to play through it. Casemiro isn't required to, and Fred isn't able to. The creativity and the quality that we didn't have in the final third is the reason that we've come away without scoring a goal and a referee. Number two, we was essentially strikerless. Ronaldo looks more and more like a spent force. We weren't good enough to have a limited box predator presence up front. Ten Hag's system needs more than that from a striker. They've got to be involved more. They've got to be more movement. Rashford can be a threat when a game's open, but he's better out wide. He's better when he's running in behind. And by the time he came on, that wasn't the game. That was the game earlier in the game. I know Ten Hag since come out and said Rashford didn't have the energy to play 90 minutes. Okay. But he doesn't have that box presence. He doesn't have that box movement. He doesn't have that box sort of predatory instinct to be a striker. We need a striker. And for everyone that's saying, like, Anthony Martial, yeah, fine. How often has he played this season? His lack of presence is a problem. Whether it's because of injuries or whatever, it's the same with Eric Bailly. He didn't play because he was never fit. That's it. You've got to be fit. It's no good having a striker that's one. Tony Marshall could be the best striker in the world, but if he never plays for us, what's the point? Number three, dogged defence. Back-to-back clean sheets, and Varane and Martinez were solid, and they weren't really threatened. I think that's a little bit of testament to how good Casemiro was, but also how good they were as well. Casemiro was great defensively, and he completed the most tackles on the pitch, and his physicality was very important. The defense needs the attack to come along with it, but I think it's testament to what Ten Hag's doing. We look like a side that knows what it's doing, playing out, which, think about how bad we played out last season. We actually look like we're quite confident doing it now. We're confident moving the ball through the thirds. It's just that final third where we break down a little bit, and that's the final piece of the jigsaw I think we need. Number four, midfield depth. Far too reliant on a 30-year-old Eriksen with potential health issues. The drop-off to the fringe players is huge, and from the fringe players, then you're talking about untested 17-year-olds like Kobe Mainoo on the bench or Zidane Iqbal on the bench. Now, I think it's a minute off. I asked you guys last night for how did Ten Hag blood some of his youngsters. Gravenberch apparently got his debut in a cup against a 7th tier team. Okay. Newcastle at home isn't a 7th tier team in the cup. It's totally different circumstances, and he's not going to get that opportunity. So I don't know when you're going to see youngsters blooded from United, unless you get 2-3-0 up in the game and he starts using them. But that, for me, was the time. I genuinely don't believe we would have seen a worse performance from the likes of Zidane. You know, Van der Beek isn't fit enough or good enough. We've sold Jimmy Garner. Iqbal seemingly isn't ready in his eyes. Why bring them in if you're not going to feature them? And someone replied to me in the comments yesterday saying there was only 2 first-team players on the bench. Everyone else was a youngster. Okay, that's fine in this particular circumstance. But for the rest of the season, Zidane, Garnacho have featured on the bench. They have. Multiple times, in multiple instances, you've seen those players on the bench, whether it's Europe, the league, whatever, but they're not coming off. We've been ahead in games. Now, we've not been totally dominant in games, or we've been 3-4 goals to the good, and it's been tight. But you've got to be able to demonstrate the trust in these players. You know, we have to have honest conversations about our players and our management. And I think Ten Hag's doing a solid. I'm hovering between a 7 and an 8 out of 10 in the job at the moment. But there's easy wins for him to steal an extra half point. Blooding these youngsters and letting us find out. Now, I'm not asking him to do the disaster that we saw under Louis of the MK Dons game. But even Jose Mourinho, last game of the season, okay, last game of the season vibes, but you bring in the likes of Josh Harrop and Angel Gomez, and they impress the shit out of you. Rarely do you see a Manchester United youngster make a debut and be awful. And we saw how capable, I know it was only pre-season, but that's all we've got to go off for Tony Marshall this year. We saw how good in pre-season the likes of Zidane and Charlie Savage looked. Give these lads a chance. Even if it's 5 minutes at the end of the game, you're going to be more confident throwing them in later down the line. You're not going to kill their confidence in 5 minutes in a game that was 0-0 when they came on and probably 0-0 by the time the game ends. Or what you might do is surprise yourself and see if one of them can get on the end of something. Same with Charlie McNeil. The guy shits goals at every single level he's played at. Invariably, Manchester United strikers, when given a debut from the academy, they score the goal. We've seen it countless times. These youngsters impress. They always do. They've built their entire life to do this. They're the least nervous person in the stadium when they get that opportunity. This was a midfield depth point. But yeah, the midfield depth isn't there. Fred, midfield yesterday was a hark back to last season. Fred and Bruno don't work. Bruno was far too high, and Fred was just poor. No wonder at times some of our play looked like last season, because you had two of the issues from last season. The defence looks totally different because the defence is totally different. Midfield looked a bit the same because, well, it was 2/3 the same. If you know, I think he's done a fantastic job improving loads of aspects of our play. I know it takes time. We will get there with that. I just find it mega frustrating because we should have took 3 points yesterday. And number 5, attacking woes. Front three has got a ton of ability, a ton of speed, a ton of skill, but it just lacked spark yesterday. Anthony and Sancho don't stretch teams or running behind. Anthony was at least beating his man and getting around the outside, but then the delivery wasn't there. And I'm not bothered about that, really, because that's what I was asking for last week, wasn't it? Like, Anthony's doing all the right things. Can we start to see him go past the man? Now he's done that, so I'm pretty happy with that. But the opportunities yesterday were to get him behind, certainly in the first half. And then when they collapsed and became a bit more low block and held on for the draw, you needed a bit more creativity then. You had a whole forward three that wasn't going to run in behind in the first half of the game. And then when you had someone that could run in behind, the opposition's just sat back on itself and prevented that. Everything was a grind with that forward three. There wasn't the sort of confidence to just blitz through somebody. It was a little bit laboured. It took like an extra pass. You know, someone just, I want to see someone just beat a man and have a dig. Anthony's been doing that, which is why he's ended up on the score sheet this season. The final piece of the jigsaw is missing in attack. And we need to figure out what it is, fix what it is, and get it sorted, because United could have a good season this season. It's wide open for us to finish inside the top 4 and build on that with a Champions League qualification into next season. I don't think we'll get a striker in January, and we are desperate for one. If we got one, I would really back our chances to finish in the top 4, because everything else looks good. We're able to keep clean sheets. We look composed in midfield. We played some brilliant one-touch football under pressure yesterday and still managed to break out and attack the opposition. But it broke down because the final ball wasn't there. If we fix that, we're going to be a force. I just don't know how long or who is going to be able to fix that for. Just watching, get your comments and thoughts and let me know if you think I'm right or wrong in the comments. And if you've made it this far in the video, then you owe me a like and you can subscribe if you haven't. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, 5-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.